inside on the shore doing the apps and me casting out from the shore.
Yeah.
He'd 9.5 pounder right,
Bloody hell.
right in front of me.
So here I am in Courtmacsherry Harbour, Bay, Estuary, call it what you will, over in Ireland, going out aboard one of Mark Gannon's boats from Courtmacsherry Pier, out through the spit, out to sea, looking for, and I emphasise looking for, the giant bluefin tuna that Mark can fish for. We're going out just basically looking, because it's all visual fishing. You're basically looking for fish on the surface. You're not going to have loads of rods out, 3 maximum probably. Most people would average about 2. You've got big 80 wide reels, and listen, is that worth getting up for? A view like that, dawn over the ocean and a fairly flat sea. Happy days. So this is just basically one that I put together from a trip I went earlier this year, trying to catch on, well, a day when there weren't many tuna around, and that's what it boils down to. So to catch these tuna, you can catch them on bait, but you can see Sean's rigging up what they call a spreader rig. It's a spreader bar, and there's lots and lots of squid and bird teasers which they drag along the surface, and they put a hook in the back one. But I have the idea that you could hook tuna and or maybe another species by pulling high-speed doorknob lures. And you can see at the back of that rod the action they make. They can punch water and make a jet of stream bubbles which looks like a fleeing fish, and we use them for marlin, and you can pull these very, very fast. It's a special shaped lure. It's basically a marlin lure, but the bluefins swim so fast, if you go through a shoal that are deeper and not showing the surface, there's every chance you get a strike out of one. So I figure this could be the way forward, is if the UK charter boats are going out looking, while they're looking all the time, why not put out a pair of doorknob lures and high-speed laminar flows, they're called, on big rods, big line. You can see there's all chunky stuff. So basically we're just racing about, we're just looking at the moment, we're not even fishing. Well, I am, because I put my high-speed lures out. So that's a bonus. Something might grab it. It costs absolutely nothing, because you're still going to be running around the ocean looking anyway for birds, dolphins. Now there, look at the waist behind the head of that, and that's what creates a very stable tracking feature, is that waist creates what they call laminar flow, and it stops it flying all over the place. And that one I've cracked because I put it in the car and then stood on it, which is not good, Graeme. That one I've got rigged on wire, because Wahoo, not in the UK or Ireland, Wahoo will hit, so I've got that one rigged on wire. That's for when I go abroad. And green is always a good colour, I think, in the UK, because it would represent the mackerel. It's very good for marlin. Again, they generally, I've got mono on the front there, probably 400 pound mono, and in between there's a special splicing rig there. You can see crimped in the centre where my finger is, and that's will be stainless steel cable, which is a different way that these lures come rigged with, and you put them on whatever mono you want. If you were just fishing a tuna, you just fish obviously mono all the way through, but if you're fishing for other species, you might want wire, say for a marlin for his bill. Well, you would do, because you wouldn't want to get it chafed through. I happen to tape those hooks together. They're just showing, I'm just basically showing you what I use for high-speed marlin trolling, and I put the tape on to protect them when I put them in suitcases and stuff like that. So there you go. High-speed lures could be the way forward. So just check this out. Can you see that? There's a couple of smooth slick spots there. Just on the surface, you can see where the surface is smoothed off, almost like an oily slick. That's caused by the big, huge minke whales coming up and then going down. So I've no idea whether it was 2 separate whales or whether it was just one whale and it's come up for air twice or expelled out the oil twice. But that's a very good sign, which is why Sean's out there scouting the ocean, looking for any signs of breaking tuna on the surface. And that's what it's about. Visual looking all the time. You're scanning, and hopefully something eats my doorknob lure straight away. Well, it's going to be a shot in the dark, but it costs nothing. So here we go with the lures out. You can see that's a spreader bar working in the water. So it's splashing, crashing, making a commotion across the surface, but it's only that, say that white one in that particular case, that Sean put over, that has the hook in it. All these others that he's lowering now are just teasers. They look like a shoal of fish going along the surface, you know, trying to escape a predator. But the one at the back, the white one, is the one with the hook in. So when you hook the fish, you have to fight the fish with all this paraphernalia as well. You know, there's still going to be a lot of drag in the water. They go, I have to say, really, really slow here. They troll very, very slowly and just skip these spreader bars with the squid across the surface. And they can bring it in and out a few yards, maybe drop it back, maybe adjust it. Same as marlin fishing with the lures, and all the time you're looking for action with birds. Birds, dolphins, whales, that's usually the three items you're looking for, or obviously if you see fish breaking, but usually, trust me, if you see the fish breaking, the birds have seen it a long, long time before you have. So there's a gannon, which is a diving one, and of course, these are travelling dolphins. You can see I've got them off the bow of the boat. They run in with the tunas, all species of tunas, yellowfins, blackfins, they'll be in amongst them anyway. So whenever if you see big shoals of tuna, you know, there's a good chance that the dolphins will be with them and vice versa. In fact, very often the dolphin will be swimming along the surface and jump it, and the tuna will be tracking them running underneath. Great to see them, very colourful. There you go, what can I say? I'm laying over the bow, getting the best shots I can for you. And again, just a few miles off Courtmacsherry, you can even go out with Mark and you know, do whale watching as well and dolphin watching. I like fish watching myself, or lure watching. That can be quite addictive actually. I've spent many a day, week, month and year looking at marlin lures. But there you can see how they splash and crash over the surface looking like a shoal of fish, and that's the general idea, that you're trying to, you know, attract something up to the surface. Ideally, the reason we stopped there was because we saw a little bit of bird activity, and it's always worth a pull through there with the lures. So while we cruise around the ocean, looking and looking, Shawnee thinks he's seen something. He thinks he's seen a whale under the water. Don't forget there's another item you should be looking for really, and that is commercial trawlers that will be putting their nets up. So if you see like this, the birds are taking all the spoils, all the bits and pieces, all the discards or whatever's coming off the back of the boat there, bits of busted fish that's coming out of the back of the trawl. Well, look at it the other way, is if the birds are feeding there, there's a good chance that the tuna will as well. And of course, years ago, when they had the North Sea herring fishery, that's exactly how they found the giant bluefins initially. They were around the herring fleet. So we continued trolling, and we went in the same sort of area that the trawler was pulling his nets. But listen, if they're not there, they're not there. But of course, with this summer fishing trolling on the surface like this, in waters off Ireland, deep and clear, you really don't know what's going to be there. And it wouldn't, to be honest, surprise me at all, even if they do get a mako shark hook up at some stage doing this trolling. I've caught mako shark on the troll, on lures at 8 knots, fishing for marlin, so I know they are catchable. They're very fast shark. So we moved ourselves around, up and down, in and out, as you do, working the area. And I suppose, with no fish to show for it, what can you do? This is a bird teaser, by the way, goes on the front as well. So having shown you best I can, I think really it's about time, thanks to Mark and Sean, you might want to see some footage of some real action.
Do you know what the fish are there? They're all bluefin tuna, most of them, and dolphins. All bluefin, most of them. Yeah. Whoa. Woo, why?
this film is something, it's a sort of experiment, if you like. I suddenly thought, after two people asked me, I said, Graeme, why do you not use the stills? Stills are still photographs. Obviously, as a sport fishing journalist that I started many, many years ago, I've got quite a lot of pictures. They're in the loft. I've got 20,000 still pictures between black and white negatives, because I have my own darkroom, and colour positives, which are slides. I've got, having been all the way to Liverpool to get my computer repaired, I've got an ancient scanner that must be 20 years old. I've got it working, and I thought, do you know what? I could put something together just talking about with stills and pictures that you guys would never have seen, because there is going to be at least a whole generation who obviously don't know what I did years ago. They don't know what I fished for. They don't know all the big fish I used to go for. They have no idea. They just think, whoa, 10 years ago was when fishing started because it's on YouTube with Graeme. No, I fished a long, long time before that and was slightly crackers on very, very big fish. Anyway, I've been into the loft. It terrifies me what's up there. Mice, spiders, and a lot of slides. Slides are these. So I used to file them like this. Fairly standard photographers had these, and you get the slides. They come mounted or unmounted in negative sections, or a lot of you won't even know what. It's hard for me to believe. There's people, the young people, don't forget there's a lot of young people on YouTube, say under 40, probably don't even have a camera that takes slides anymore like this. It's all digital, isn't it? But years ago, we had to buy a roll of film, put the roll of film in the camera, and then when you came back, send it off for processing, or in my case with black and whites, I had a darkroom, I did my own developing of negs and everything. Negs and negatives, black and white negatives. So, I've got 20,000 pictures to plough through, a lot of pictures. So I'm going to put this piece together, which is some video, and I'm going to throw in the odd still using this scanner, which makes right peculiar noises, and it works like this. Let me show you. So now I've got the old slide scanner here. As you see, it's Dimage Scandual 4. It's a Minolta, and I used to have Minolta still cameras. And of course, the youngsters on YouTube now aren't possibly ever going to have the huge volume of pictures that I've got, because there's years and years of them. So it works like this. It's plugged in to the computer here, alright? It's the best I can do. So I switched on. So once I've loaded it in, I can go to colour negative. Let me come in on that a bit for you. I can go to colour negative, black and white negatives, and I've got some really old black and white negs I can use. Colour positive, which is what I've got. Black and white positive, which I've never used. So I'm going to go here into colour positive. I go down here and I go into next. So it's currently scanning 4 frames that I've put in there. As you can see on the bar there, that's what it's scanning. Spits it out again. I'm going to go for dust removal, reducing the grain, which is basically dots and stuff like that you might get on it. Auto image correction. Now that's on its side there. So I've highlighted that one. I'm going to go to rotate clockwise. Same with this other fish here. Let's rotate it clockwise. Wait till you see this picture, people. Wait till you see it. It didn't rotate clockwise. There it is. Let me zoom in on that for you. Yes, lots and lots of shore fish. That's what it used to be like years ago. Don't forget, these slides are very, very old. This one, highlight clockwise. Go to next. I'm going to go for 3 megapixel or 5, or save at highest resolution. Let's try save at highest resolution, scan. What it's doing in there is adjusting frames, focus, pre-scans, does a pre-scan. I thought I'd just tell you this stuff, it's just interesting. It's probably 25, 30 years old, this scanner. So it's working away there. Sounds a bit like NASA control. but it's a way of utilising perhaps some of my old pictures that nobody would possibly, unless they're 80, would have ever seen, I should think, because there's a lot of old pictures on here. So it's going in, scanning, loading the bar, and then when it's got a picture up, it's going to pop up on my desktop, and I'll show you exactly what the picture looks like and what I intend doing with it. It then goes into processing the data, which basically means loading it into the file which I've set, in this case, the desktop. It says continue. Okay, I don't want to continue at the moment. Well, I do want to continue badly, but I can't. And I'm going to pull this picture down here, right? Now, if you watch this, this was years ago. There's a very, very young, good-looking man here. I'm going into that. I'm going to pull it up. And there, you might be able to see. I mean, this is a weird way to do it. A very big cod caught by a good-looking chap off the south coast of Eastbourne, wreck fishing in a small boat. When we caught so many cod, we were literally up to our knees in cod. And that's honestly the truth. Check out my cod book. There's a picture in there that looks like it's trawler. You want to see a river? How about this for a river? And setting. Does anybody out there know where this is? Fabulous, fabulous trip I went on doing photography all the way across the country. And what I'm going to do now is to hopefully, so fingers crossed, hopefully is the word, I can get this all working and tie it to when I'm doing a voiceover. I can run the camera and get some pictures off there to at least tell you guys what I'm talking about, because with 20,000 pictures you can imagine how many fish I've got that were caught years ago that possibly one or even two generations had no idea of the standard of fish I was catching at the time, and indeed everybody was, because there were more fish then, I'm guessing. Now, there are many species of tuna. You would think the bluefin tuna, being the biggest, is the hardest fighting. But it's just physically the hardest fighting because of the size of fish in relation to the human being trying to wind it in. But one of the hardest fighting, which is on the balanced tackle, obviously not on the same tackle, but if you could scale the tackle down to a sort of light spinning rod, 12-15 pound line, a fixed spool reel, that type of thing, the hardest fighting tuna without a doubt in my mind and many other light tackle anglers' minds is the blackfin tuna. Now they are a fish, I'm going to say, if you had a 25 pound blacktip tuna, you've got a hell of a fight on your hands on 15 pound line. You are not winding it straight to the boat. It's not happening. You're going to have to play that fish out. And I've caught them on fly rods as well. Out in the Florida Keys, it's pretty standard fish on somewhere like a mark called the Hump off Whale Harbour area of Islamorada. It's like an undersea mountain, and they chum up with live pilchards, and you can get them busting on the top at the back of the boat. It's really exciting fishing, but they don't grow to the size of the bluefin. The bluefin is the biggest. But there you go, so that's another species. You would also get, I'm going to say, it's not quite in the bluefin category, but you can get big eye tuna, which are mostly, so I'm going to say Central Atlantic-ish, and you can get Pacific big eye tuna as well, and you can get yellowfin tuna. Now I'm going to call them sort of the ballpark price of £300, 200, 300 pounds. Bigger than that, the world record's obviously 400s, but there's far more yellowfin tuna than there are big eye tuna. But they're both good scrappers, but just myself personally, I find the yellowfin is the better scrapper, and you can catch those on light spinning gear in a smaller size. You know, a yellowfin tuna, let's say 20 pounds this big, going to give you a great scrap on 15-20 pound line. They're brilliant light tackle fish, and they take off the surface. Now another species of tuna which I have caught also is called the dogtooth tuna, and that is more of a deep water feeding tuna, and my god, they have the teeth seriously of an Alsatian dog. Again, they grow into the hundreds of pounds. You can get 8 or 10 pound fish, I suppose. 15 pounders might be an average. I've caught them in the Seychelles Islands, the Amarantes Group, De Roche, those sort of places, and indeed off Mauritius. Nice big one I had there. Took a huge dead bait that I was trolling for black marlin in by the reef in like an open dinghy with an outboard. Bit crazy, but I did say earlier on I'm a bit crazy on the old big game fishing at that time. So you've got dogtooth tuna that can grow very big and very strong, but you hook them deep, generally on lures, or you're going to catch them on a live bait with a downrigger, which is a big lead ball that takes the bait down deep, and they're going to be hunting inshore around reefs, not so much offshore like you would get the yellowfin tunas. Anyway, here's a little clip of a yellowfin tuna that we caught out in Ascension Island when they had fishing out there, and it was indeed a big one. It was 300 odd pounds. That's a big yellowfin. Wait for this, they grow bigger as well. And so another one you might catch as well. Must forget this one, it's one of the most common marlin baits you get, and that's a skipjack tuna. Skipjack tuna, really good scrappers. Of course you can eat them as well, but predominantly I would say marlin fishermen were looking for them to catch them for live bait in about the £5 range. I would say £4 to £6, that sort of range. Of course, don't forget you're fishing blue marlin, you can put as big a tuna on as you want. In fact, there was a case of a guy, I think he was 70 or 80, and he caught, I think it was a £104 yellowfin tuna. Wait for this. The tuna, this is a £104 tuna. It got eaten by a blue marlin on the way in, and they landed the marlin. I think that was £1,000. I mean, some catch, eh? I wish I could catch 2 fish in one. Anyway, the skipjack tuna in places like Mauritius grow really, really big. Now I'm going to put up a picture now of a colossal catch we had going out there one day looking for the marlin, but the sound goes up in Creole first amongst the skipper and crew, and then it comes in sort of French to me, which I understand. Le grand bonite, that means big bonito. Now it's fine trolling along your small squid and catching them £5, but when they are 25 to 35 pounds, that's some fish. And when you get a triple hook up of those on something like a £30 outfit, which is our regulation boat outfits, my God, you get some sort of scrap. So don't forget skipjack tuna. Good to eat, but oh, what a live bait they are. Don't even mention them in front of a shark, because they bleed out lovely, lovely fresh meat, and of course the sharks smell that and they're on them in a flash. Skipjack tuna, another great one to catch. Now, as well as the yellowfin, which is, I'm going to say, the generalised in the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the 3 oceans, the more popular tuna to catch and good eating, you can get the smaller species as well as the blackfin. You can get one called a little tunny. Now that means like a little tuna really, because in England the bluefin tuna was known as the tunny. Don't ask me why. In the North Sea they used to catch huge fish. I think the biggest was 950 or whatever pounds. Big one, just shy of £1,000. And that was in the North Sea when they were feeding on the herring shoals of the North Sea. That's all gone. So these fish that have come now, really in the last, I'm going to say 8 years, really, that last 8 years has been popularised. But listen, when I was up in that loft looking at those slides, I stumbled across something and I feel it might be of interest to you, because Uncle Graeme does not speak with forked tongue and came up with about bluefin tunas and stuff many, many, many years ago in British waters. Now then, if you recall, I mentioned in the recent film I just put up there now, about trolling, about the doorknob, about the high-speed doorknob marlin lures. Why were they not used? Well, maybe they will be in the future. Anyway, I came across this book when I was up in the loft. These old cuttings, just old cuttings that I've kept, for some reason, of articles and letters I've had published. Look at the age, 14/15. The first ever one was age 14 about centerpin fishing. Now I'm 71 this year, just past the 70. So at the age of 14 I was fishing centerpins. Most of the people doing YouTube stuff now, possibly not as old as me, they possibly weren't even born then. But one of the clippings I found was really interesting. It was in the old Angling magazine, January 1975. Now for those who want to go to sleep, fine, that's okay, switch off, whatever. There will be some there that might be interested. I'm going to read this. It's called Why Not Troll Out and In. For some time now, this is my letter to the magazine which was published. For some time now I have pondered over the knowledge of the actual fishing time wasted on journeys to and from port when out sharking. I have always wondered why it was not possible to fish on these journeys for something, anything. Would it not be possible to fit 2 outriggers, such as on a big game boat, for trolling? The rods used for sharking could then be fixed to the rear of the boat and used to troll a surface boat out or on the journey back in. For instance, this is years ago mind, there are about 20 shark boats operating out from the port of Looe. 2 hours would be a standard steaming time out to the shark grounds, but could be counted as 1.5 hours actual fishing time. Add to that 1.5 hours return fishing time, 2 rods trolling from 1 boat, that makes 40 rod hours fishing for 3 hours a day. 7 days a week from May to September, that makes 40 baits or lures fishing for 3 hours a day for a staggering 126 days, and that's only from 1 port. As for the cost, don't laugh at this one. It is like 50 years ago. As for the cost, perhaps £1 extra per person could be charged. I, for one, would be glad to pay for the extra fishing time. £1. Oh, I've not changed at all. And the chance of a swordfish or some other exotic species. I wonder if any other readers have any views on this. P.S. I don't know what the continental trolling speed might be, but it's somewhere around 8 to 10 knots, as is a shark boat. P.P.S. If anybody says it wouldn't pay, just reckon out how much £1 extra per person would come to for that period. My estimation is around £7,500. G. Pull and Fleet Hands. And then I got ripped by the editor. Swordfish? Well, broadbills are global oceanic fish, but not much hopes of one around the British shores. Maybe a slow troll, a porbeagle, a mako or a thresher. Again, a very slim chance, says the editor. No, the real answer is better, faster boats to reduce steaming time, isn't it? Perhaps a start is being made in Falmouth, where Robin Vinicum has taken delivery of a new boat that I'm told can cruise at 20 odd knots. The editor. So I thought, oh, well, I was just sort of interested. Anyway, the following issue, I think it was the following month, in comes an answer. Shark trolling in the letters page. I feel your comments on Mr. G. Pullen's letter, I never knew this guy, regarding trolling, angling, January 1974, to be a little hard. My experience of sharking in British waters is that the steaming rate is about 8 to 10 knots, which in other countries is regarded as an ideal trolling speed. My experience is based on a trip to the Bahamas in May 1972. Our steaming speed then was about 16 knots, but our fishing speed 8 knots. Did I just say the Bahamas? Seems like a misspin. Many other fish were chewed up by sharks before they could be landed. I'm not claiming that such fish were doing 8 knots, but in the Free State they are capable of much greater speeds. A wahoo, for instance, is capable of 40 knots, and such fish are the Dido sharks. Another example I offer is that at the end of a day's trolling, I left my bait astern while we trolled home. To my amusement, and to the amusement of the skipper and crew, 10 minutes later I hooked and landed a £5 amberjack. My argument then is based on the idea that the shark is capable of speeds in excess of 8 to 10 knots, and being known on occasion to follow engine noise, quite capable of interception of a moving bait. Wait for this. Speeds of 15 knots may not be possible for fishing the cooler waters of the British Isles, but I am sure that a trolling weighted bait astern with perhaps a couple of surface teasers would produce some highly interesting results. Blah 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 blah. Assuming that shark follow the concentration gradient once they reach any such trail, then might not such a trail when laid for trolling further improve catches. Blah blah blah. that was from, wait for this, Dr. C.S. Reeves, London. Now, I know Charles and knew him after, way after this was published. I think he came on one of our trips once, Dr. Charles Reeves. Anyway, he knows what he's talking about with foreign fishing. So, I was right back then. And once I came back, it was out of Mevagissey, I think it was, and honest to God, I had a Kona head jointed lure because I was in that zone, and I used to drag it everywhere purely from this letter that I wrote. I thought, I'm determined to try and get something, and I had a huge boil, two boils I think it was, come up behind the lure, a chasing type of boil, not just a swirl from a porpoise, you know, or basking shark, a proper rip at it. I never hooked up, so that got me to writing this. So I'm just mentioning that to you guys out there. You saw that, in fact, I was trying to push over in Ireland the fact that they're roaring around looking for the bluefin tuna. I can assure you the bluefin tuna will catch a 15-knot lure, no problem. Boom, they're on it. Why not stick 2 high-speed doorknob lures out there, and you could double up, and you might get something like, which does tolerate our waters, a white marlin, because there's been a white marlin caught by a bass fisherman on a rotten line from the back of the Isle of Wight on the Bass Banks. Oh yes. And of course some of you might have seen the video that was on, I forget, was it on YouTube or Facebook, where one of these social things, of a swordfish in the water just off Bracklesham Bay, which is Selsey Bill. It's there, you can't dispute it, it was there. So there are stuff out there, and in fact, the albacore tuna, I used to supply lures to a guy, was his name Trevor Phillips? If you were out there, back me up. I think it was a guy, Trevor Phillips from the Isle of Wight, who was catching albacore way offshore years ago. I'm talking years ago, on little 7-strand Kodachrome lures. I used to sell him. I used to bring them back from America and have them shipped over when I used to do a bit of foreign fishing. I used to buy loads of lures, too many lures, as we all know. But there you go. It's all out there, people. And I want to show you a little bit about yellowfin tuna fishing to give you an idea.
I don't
yeah, £300 is a big tuna. Now, the difference being, that one there had a tag in it, if you saw that. And while we were over there, I managed to get an interview with a young lady who was doing research into the yellowfin tuna. I found it was really quite fascinating, some of the stuff they did over there. But the balance is, the bluefin tunas that people are fishing for in the UK now, take and release only, there's a no take on them. The yellowfin tuna you can still eat, and they're a great eating fish, make no mistake, they're probably the prime eating fish of all the tunas. So, before the snowflakes hit the keyboards, oh my God, you've killed it! It got eaten. And what you have to do first is skin it and prep it, and here you go, the skipper's going to show you how it's done. If you're squeamish and you only buy your fish in a packet from the supermarket and don't realise that fish actually look like fish, they're not really swimming around the ocean in a plastic packet, are they? Turn away now. Fishermen, I imagine, won't be bothered.
A little more. Good. Got him to slide. Oh, so there ain't a lot of tuna like that.
No, there's no. That's been surprised too. That's where the mom will come in and it begin.
Yeah. They haven't that. Roll up. Oh man, some rice put it there.
Want some to take up with you?
Yes, didn't the skipper make that look deceptively easy? Not like me chewing away on some poor whiting on a south coast beach with a blunt knife and I get a piece of meat this big. Anyway, let's get in the laboratory and learn a bit more about the history of the tagging and research on the island for those tuna.
Hi, I'm Kate Downs and I am currently working on Ascension Island. We're working on a marine biodiversity project called the Ascension Island Marine Sustainability Project. It's a 2-year project that's funded by the Darwin Initiative, and part of the work we're doing is looking at fisheries biology. So one of our study species is the yellowfin tuna. So we are doing ageing and reproductive biology studies. So we collect the otolith, which is the ear bone of the tuna, and that helps us with the ageing. We can process them in the lab, and they lay down annual growth rings, which we can then read under a microscope, and that will give us the age of the fish. We also collect the gonad, which is the reproductive organ, and we do a process called histology, which then looks at the cell structure, and we can gauge the maturity stage of the gonad to see if the yellowfin tuna populations that are utilising Ascension's waters are reproductively mature here, and if there are any spawning grounds close by. And a separate study that I'm also doing is looking at the yellowfin tuna diet. So I collect the stomachs of the tuna and bring them back to the lab and analyse them to work out exactly what they've been eating and how much they've been eating. This should give us an insight into not only their diet and the prey items that they consume, but also if there's a more resident population of yellowfin tuna around Ascension, as what we've been finding recently is that a lot of the large tuna, so over 100 kilos, predominantly feed on blackfish, which is a very localised population around Ascension and very abundant. And it was previously thought that they had no natural predators, but the tuna are definitely eating them. And in some of the very, very big tuna, so over 100 kilos, we're actually finding upwards of 20 to 30 blackfish within the stomachs. Another part of the project also covers looking at the distribution of the yellowfin tuna. So we have two types of tags that we have been deploying. The first one is a satellite tag, and this is made by wildlife computers. So this part here is the anchor point, which goes into the fish. So it is actually placed within the dorsal mass of the fish, into the muscle there. And this part here is the sensor. Now these are pop-up archival satellite tags. So what they do is they're deployed. We program them first using a computer program and a USB stick. They are programmed to record depth, temperature and location, and they do that by geolocation, by using light. So we actually have two methods of deploying them. We use this, which hooks onto the anchor point here, and that's when we have been line fishing for the tuna. So we bring the tuna up onto the boat, we take the weight and the length, and then we pop the tag in. And another way that we've been deploying them is actually using a modified spear gun tip and being in the water with the tuna, chumming, getting them to come up, and then getting within sort of 1.5 meters, 2 meters range, and shooting the tag into the tuna in exactly the same place that we do when we use this one here. And another tagging project that we're doing here as well are with these streamer tags, or also known as PIMA tags, which is plastic intramuscular tags. So these are deployed much the same way as the satellite tags. This is the anchor point here. It goes into the same place on the tuna within the dorsal muscle mass. These tags obviously don't record anything, but what they have is a unique tag identifying number, and then they have our address and our telephone number. So these are deployed purely to see if, or to see how long they've been deployed. So we know exactly when these were put out and the length and the weight of the fish, and then hopefully we get some recaptures of these ones, and we can measure the time that they've been at large, for how long, and if the fish has grown within that time, and also would give us some indication of where they've been travelling. So that's why we have our contact details on them, so if they go much further afield, then anybody that picks them up would be able to get these tags back to us. So we are currently processing all of our samples that we collect from the yellowfin tuna, so all of the otoliths and the gonads. We are currently finding that the tuna around Ascension can be anywhere upwards of 15 to 20 years old. Previously published literature actually states that they only live to around 5 or 6 years old, but we are definitely seeing different here. So once we've collected the otoliths from the tuna, we set them into a resin block like this one, and we then use this, which is a dedicated otolith saw, and what it actually does is it cuts a very thin section through the otolith. So you end up with quite thin strips, and they're 350 microns thick, and that is what we then put onto a slide, and then we look under on the microscope. So your skipper from last night, Kimbo, he's just come in and given me the tag that you guys caught of the tuna. I'm just checking on the database. This particular fish was tagged on the 5th of August at a location not that far from where it was caught. So it's actually been deployed for 2 months. So it means that that tuna has stuck around the island for the last 2 months.
Well, there you go. Hopefully you got a bit of an insight into the different species of tuna you can catch, and of course those bluefin tuna which you can catch in the UK now, if you go on the right boats, that is. So check it all out next year. All the rules and regs always change, and everything changes here in England. We just get one thing set and another thing gets changed. it is whatever, it's just fishing. And thanks for watching us. Hopefully you like this type of thing. I mean, look, it's not all big impact making 10-minute little YouTube type films for numbers. I do it for information, for a piece of history which would otherwise be lost. So for me, a lot of work, but it's sort of my amusement, my hobby. If you enjoy it, let us know in the comments. If you found something there, it might just have passed the time. There could be information on there that you never knew before and you probably won't get on television. And the exclusive interview with a kind young lady who was a technician. Very interesting. Guys, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and I hope to be fishing soon, because I hate the cold winter. I'm getting fed up with it. Don't like the cold. I'll get back to work now. See you later.